Well, I've been wanting to do a video about Wizard of Oz books for a while. There's a lot of confusion out there about identifying your edition of your Wizard of Oz books because typically the publishers didn't include the publishing dates early on. They included the copyright date, which didn't usually change very much. And so people get really confused. And I just thought I would do this video to hopefully help people understand better whether they have first editions of various books in L. Frank Baum and Ruth Plumly Thompson's Wizard of Oz series. And I happen to have several early editions of The Wizard of Oz here today, so I thought this would be a good time to start the series and show you some of these early editions. Now, the reference that I'm using for this is the most recent Wizard of Oz book collecting book, The Book Collector's Guide to L. Frank Baum. And it's by Paul Bienvenu and Robert Schmidt. Hard to find, but hopefully there'll be a new edition out soon. There's a lot of terminology in here that I won't be going into because it's quite complex, but hopefully I'll be giving you enough information to be able to know whether or not you have a first edition of a Wizard of Oz book. Okay, so let's get started with the first edition, first date of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Now, this was published in 1900 by George M. Hill and written by L. Frank Baum and illustrated by W. Denslow. They actually held a joint copyright for this book. What makes this book first edition and a first date is, first of all, the cover itself and the title and the fact that it's published by George M. Hill. And I'll show you the actual title page there. And what makes this the first date of the first edition is that in the back, if you look at the colophon, it's actually enclosed in a box and it's 11 lines, okay? You'll see that'll change in the second state that I'll show you shortly. So I actually have a second state as well of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. You can see the cover looks pretty much the same. I should show you the back cover too, which is really nice as well. But if you look inside the back cover at that colophon, you'll now see that it's not enclosed in a box and it's 13 lines instead of 11, okay? Small thing, but important. And the next thing is that on page 227, a typo was corrected. So instead of while Tin Woodman, which is what is given in the first state, it now says while the Woodman in the first line there. You see that? Now, both these books, even though they're different states, are actually in the same binding. Just to complicate things further, there were 3 binding types for this first edition. These are both in the B binding, and the main difference in the binding states is in the publisher's name at the base of the spine here. You can see these are both in red, and they're an unserif type. These are binding B. For binding A, which is really scarce, it was written in green type instead of red type, unserifed. And then for binding C, which tends to be a little more common, it's a red type, it's like this, but it's serif type, and it's a little bit wider typeface as well, a little bit rounder looking. Okay. Another important point is that there should be 24 color plates in this first edition, and color plates were actually added after the print, the text pages themselves, and sometimes they fall out, and the title page is considered one of the color plates. So the title page plus 23 color plates. Let me show you one of the color plates here so you know what they look like that. So there's color on some of the text pages as well, but it's typically one color on the page in addition to black. Okay, so what about the second edition? So the second edition actually had a new publisher, Bobbs Merrill. It started to be published about 1903, and they actually added a 1903 copyright date in it. And the first printing of the second edition has a cover like this, and it's actually now called The New Wizard of Oz. The title page is also quite different. New Wizard of Oz, and it has the Bobbs Merrill publisher there. Okay, so that's the first printing. Another change they made is they went down to only 16 color plates, including the title page. So if you have one of these, you should count the color plates and make sure they're all there. The earlier books had also a period following Baum on the spine. So this gets a little complicated again. This is actually binding A with the new wizard, the period on the spine, and it also has the Tin Woodman on the back. Okay. And then we had a second printing of the second edition. Okay. And it looked like this. They dropped the new. That's the main change. It also had 16 color plates. This is also, this is now binding B, which dropped the new, but it still has the dot. It still has Tin Woodman on the back. Okay. And then there was also, let me show you the differences in the binding at the top. You can see this is the first binding with the new, and this is binding B without the new, and then there's unserifed V. Then there's a third binding C where the V is now serifed again. Okay, so they're making all these changes as they're going along, making it quite complex. And finally, there's a third printing of the second edition, and it's typically in a binding without the Tin Woodman on the rear cover. And there's also some text changes as well, which I won't go into. Finally, the last one I'm going to show you is the third edition. It looks like this. It looks a lot like the others, right? But hopefully you can read that. It now has a new publisher. It's Donahue, M.A. Donahue. And they started publishing this book about 1913. And their title page is now a little different because it says Donahue at the bottom. I see this book misidentified a lot as a second edition. It's actually a third edition with Donahue there. And this cover, they actually had two printings. The first printing had 16 color plates, like the earlier editions. And then the second printing, which is what this is here, only had 2 color plates, the title page, and then this one opposite, which is kind of an odd plate in that it is a double-sided color plate. Okay. So, and then you go through the text, you won't see any color plates. You may see some color on the text pages, but not these inserted color plates. So those are the ones I'm going to show you. About 1920, Bobbs Merrill came out with a 4th edition, which was very different. Instead of this sort of impressed stamped cover, they had a paste down color plate, which they used for a lot of the books from then on. And it's got orange on it as well. So that looks very different. If you have that, or if you have something that doesn't look like one of these ones I showed you, then it's a later edition. And there were many, many later editions of Wizard of Oz published. So that's the first book. Hopefully soon I'll be able to show you some of the points of the second book, The Marvelous Land of Oz. Thank you.